a key person of the team goes to a country. There, they hire new people and they start in this country. And maybe in 1 year, this key person goes to another country. But to start with a person, my experience, with a person with a key person of the team, and also to have like a playbook, because normally companies, they try to open in different countries, like adapting to the culture of this new country, and that's okay, but you have to have like a playbook of your company, of the way your process, the way you work, and then you adapt a bit, of course, in each country. But to have a playbook, for our experience, is so important.
And it's an individual playbook for each startup. It's not like one you can download on the internet. Right?
Yeah, of course. A playbook, and then you adapt to each country.
Yeah.
But to have at least a playbook, so these people you hire, they have like something, a guide.
Perfect.
From the company.
Damian, do you have make some mistakes?
I agree with both. Underestimate the culture. It's one of the most, I think, common mistakes. The things you have to learn how things work in other countries. Not the same. It's not about language. For example, in Argentina, we have a very volatile economic context, and everybody's going very fast to close deals in a very short time, and maybe in other countries the context is more stable and you have to be more quiet, and things are very different. And the other thing is to have a plan. It's not only going to have a business trip for 1 week or 2 weeks, is to have a plan for at least 1 year or 2 years, and maybe in one trip you don't have any result, but maybe in 3, 4, or 5 different business trips you will have your results you expect.
Absolutely. It's not just taking the plane.
Yeah.
Okay. Susana, you have a lot of experience in Europe. What will be your suggestion to a Spanish startup about expanding in Europe? And how can I expand without burning out my headquarters, right? Because it's like taking the plane, looking in a new country, and everyone is going down there. So.
Yeah, well, I think that, as you say, probably Europe is like the natural market for a Spanish company, a Spanish startup, because of geographic presence. And I think the right way to do it is to find the market that better could welcome the product or the service that we are offering. Of course, look for the right partners. I think it's a good idea to try to have contacts, potential partners, or maybe distributors or sister companies. I would say that can help you in that strategy instead of going alone, because it's important to understand the different specificities of the different countries. So it's as you were saying, I think this is the global approach. No? You need to have a global strategy, but then a local approach, and understanding the different culture, market needs, or behavior of the consumers. So, so I think Europe could be the right market. Of course, accessing, for example, the right platform like Euronext would give you a good visibility. But of course, you have to choose the better way to do it.
Is there some country that you recommend for a Spanish startup? Or it depends on
I think it really depends on the business. Maybe France could be like the natural market because it's really close to Spain and it's a big market, but also Germany, but it's super competitive as well. So it really depends. It's not possible to...
Which is the easiest one for a Spanish guy and the hardest one in Europe?
Well, maybe the closest could be Portugal, but Portugal is still a relatively small market, so it could be like a first step. But then I could go probably to France and continue maybe with Germany or the UK if it makes sense. Independent.
Perfect. Maria, you as an investor see a lot of business plan, pitch decks, and whatever. And always you see like, oh, I will scale like exponential, right? Typical graph. How can you see the realistic scaling versus dream come true scaling, right? It's like the entrepreneur always say I want to go and sell 10 times what I'm selling right now, but you as investor has to put like a code of reality to that projections.
I mean, normally people say that business plan worthless because what you say, like, okay, the scalability shown in the business plan is unbelievable, so it's like wet paper. So for me, that's a myth, because for us, it's very important, the business plan, because it's the way we see the founders, how they show us the way they think. I mean, a good database business plan says a lot. And then you can understand through that business plan the way they think and what hypotheses are under this business plan. So for us, it's very important. But, I mean, however, we build normally our the business plan we think is realistic in a company we are analyzing. But first of all, we try to understand very well the business plan they show us, and then we do like another business plan with maybe more realistic numbers to see if that makes sense. But I think we are a bit unfair with the entrepreneurs, because we ask them to be like super ambitious, but then we ask them to be realistic. So okay, this business plan is so. I mean, we are unfair.
Can an Excel say the truth, or it's just?
Can what? Sorry.
An Excel,
yeah?
a spreadsheet, can it tell the truth, or it's just lies that the entrepreneur are putting there?
Sometimes you see, that's what I was saying at the beginning, sometimes you see some business plans which have nothing inside. I mean, just numbers, no study, no anything. I mean, it's a not database business plan with no hypothesis. So in those cases, we just stop analyzing the company.
Yeah.
I mean, if the CEO is not able to do a business plan with a strong hypothesis under it, no sense for me just to...
Yeah, I think it's more about how the founder think than the number that he put on the business plan.
Of course, I mean, that's what I wanted to say. Maybe I didn't say
myself.
Try to say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult, right? To see which entrepreneur can do a scale company, which not, or it's easy.
I mean, you
for
study the market, how scalable that company can be.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end, everything is execution. So maybe on paper, you think this can be very scalable, and then the team does it very bad, and it's not scalable at all. So you never know. But to see if something could be scalable, I mean, it's almost objective.
Yeah. Luisa, you're working in Wayra, and Wayra in the last year has made like a kind of pivot.
Yeah.
They were supporting investing in startups. Now they are investing in scale-ups. So a huge change. You have to change also yourself, I think, right? Like Wayra and your value proposition. What do you? How you have to adjust yourself as Wayra to now look for scale-ups than look for startups?
Well, the change is not that dramatic, because the change that we have made in our strategy is try to be closer to Telefónica. So right now, our value proposition for the entrepreneurs is joint business generation with Telefónica. And to achieve that, that's why we need to look for more mature startups. You know, when we started in 2011, the ecosystem where we was operating was not mature enough to invest in unicorns, you know, super big companies. But nowadays, the ecosystem has grown a lot, both here in Europe and in Latin America, and that's why it makes sense for us to adjust a little bit our value proposition. And that's the reason why our investment thesis right now, it says fit first, investment follows. Because when we are analyzing a startup, we are always looking for that fit case, you know, to help that startup to do business in the country who is making the investment, but also through all our footprint in the 10 countries where we operate.
How it works?
Really good. Yeah, we are doing great. And
CEO is here, you know, so I want you to say.
But you know, we are super happy with that.
How can you know that you're now having success with a scale-up? Because it's different. It's like, okay, now I have to promise this guy that I will help him open 3 countries. Like, it's like...
Yeah, but you don't decide, okay, I will open 3 countries right now. You know, it's something that you have to do step by step. So just for making an example, in my case, I'm part of the team in Wayra Spain. So when we decided to invest into a new startup, we start working with that team in Spain. And as soon as we achieve a success business case, then I will call you and I will tell you, hey, Claudio, I have this startup who is doing really good things here in Spain, and in my opinion makes sense for you to help them to scale into Chile or into Argentina, because that's why we are working to have a global network.
Perfect. Damian, your experience with this, it's too crazy to scale from Argentina to Spain, for example?
No, sometimes I think it's more crazy to go from Argentina to Brazil, for example. We are very close, but the culture is very, very different. In our case, we take advantage from our investors, in this case, Guaira and Globant, that they have global offices in many countries. So we take advantage from their networks and contacts. Other possibilities with free money accelerators. You already know Startup Chile. There are many programs like that they give you money, mentors, and contacts, so you can make a soft landing with no investment, with free money. Other possibilities with partners or resellers or with a joint venture in a local market. I think that are some tips for expand your company in other markets. That's our method. We have a B2B business model, so.
Perfect. So you have to look for the right partner to scale to other country and not just taking the plane alone and arriving, don't know what to do, right?
It's so difficult in that way because you don't know anybody. It's very hard to get a contact without a recommendation. Other possibilities, for example, we started working with Disney in Latin America, and then they recommend us with the EMEA office in UK. So if you had some clients in your local market, then you can have a recommendation to other offices. And if you have already a success case, it's very sure for the other.
Scaling to customers can be another way of scale.
Yes, sure. Yep.
Maria, you want to?
Yeah, yesterday, Cabify, I don't know if any of you were in the panel of Cabify, it was interesting because they were saying, well, I mean, to choose the country you're going to go after that is not so sophisticated sometimes as it looks. They said, we just say, okay, we study the market, so the market, then the competitors, and network we have there. So we study these three things, and then also the strategy point of view. But with these three things, then in your board you decide, so it's not so sophisticated. And also about Guaira, I think it's very interesting.
What you're going to say, Maria?
I'm very happy with your pivot. So, no, the thing is, like, I mean, we are co-investors in a company. So I think it's very interesting because, for example, for this company, which we announced a round of 5 million round a couple of days ago, Guaira is a good client of this company. So with the pivot they have done, I'm an outsider. So if the CEO is here, for me, it's not my CEO.
No pressure, no pressure.
I can say it. So the companies they invest, now they add more value because they are like more concentrated in companies like more related with Telefonica. So this company that we are investors, actually one of the main investors, they have Telefonica, they are part of Guaira, and they have Telefonica as a client, like a good client.
And not only in Spain, and that's the good thing.
Yeah.
We are helping our startups to scale up globally. So yeah, that's really cool.
So before, without the pivot, it was more difficult because they invested in so many different things. But now, they can concentrate in the good ones, like the one we are sharing in our portfolio.
Perfect. Susana, do you have some suggestion for a startup that is here right now on this panel and saying, okay, I really want to scale right now, going out of the summit and I go to work? What are your 3 suggestions for this entrepreneur?
Well, first, I think the entrepreneur or the startup has to do his own homework, so they have to be prepared. So first, the management team, having a full team and proper team, I think that's critical, apart from the CEO, the founder, and CFO, and other critical positions. I think that's the first thing. And then have a clear or an initial roadmap, having an equity story behind, because what investors are going to ask, at least in my experience, but both in capital markets and my previous experience in private equity, First thing is management team. Of course, you need a good product or service that it's sellable in the market, but you need to have a strategy and an equity story. So you need to be able to tell something, to sell something, and to make investors fall in love with your company and invest in that company.
So if I'm selling 10,000 euros monthly, better not to scale yet, trying to sell more, getting more customers?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I could focus on strengthening the business, getting more customers, and finding new ways, other channels of distribution or whatever. But I think you need to have a larger scale before scaling.
Perfect. Just to end, one suggestion of each of you to the entrepreneurs who are here about ready, steady scale. Luisa, a suggestion for entrepreneurs?
I would like to say, don't be afraid to fail. I mean, it's part of the process, and it's okay if you are learning from your mistakes. So just keep moving, and as people in Silicon Valley says all the time, go big or go home. So that's it.
You have to try it.
Yeah, always. And if you fail, keep trying. Maybe that's not like the perfect idea, but you have a path to follow. So don't be afraid to commit mistakes.
But if you fail tip.
Yeah. Fail by learning.
Fail cheap for investor, it's interesting to fail cheap. That's your recommendation?
No,
fail
it's
cheap?
true, sorry.
Go, Maria, please.
No, for example, I was thinking like which mistakes has our 35 companies made. I mean, there are a lot, so I could never end. But one of them, which is a big mistake, is like to grow in terms of the team too quickly. Sometimes, like, you start sending a lot, so you double your team, I know, in 6 months, and really that's not easy, because a team of a startup has to be, like, the culture of the team we were talking before, so that's very important. And also, normally, senior people in the teams are very expensive, so startups try to get senior people, like, later possible, but really, for us, companies which have higher senior people sooner, the sooner the better.
Perfect. Good advice. Damian?
I think it's important the founders go to those new markets and try to understand by their own how things happen there. Have a plan. It's very, very important. Try to focus in one market first, not in 5 at the same time.
Not just collecting flags? No, okay.
Yeah, and I agree with them that grow your team just in case you need it. It's not a KPI just to grow the team.
Perfect. Susana?
Just in a few words, I would say take the next step of the business.
Perfect.
Very nice.
Just to end, a big applause for the panel, please. One second. Just 10 seconds. I have brought a gift. It's a book about pitching and how to make a good commercial pitch. Very important for startups. But I have just one. Oh, so we have a little game. Just 10 seconds. Please, everyone, stand up. Stand up, everyone. Everyone know how to play scissors, rock, and paper, right? Okay, everyone will play against me. And if you lose or you make the same, you sit down, okay? Please be honest, okay? Because I can't see every hand. You cannot participate, I'm sorry. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So only scissors sitting up, only scissors, only scissors, only scissors, because I have paper. Scissors, tijeras, solo tijeras. Solo tijeras? Okay, once again, 1, 2, 3. Just paper, just paper, just paper. No, paper, only paper. Only paper. Okay, once again, 1, 2, 3. Rock, where's a rock? Where's a rock? There's a rock. Yeah, we have a winner! Okay, everyone. Thank you again, and go to the next panel.
Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Come on in, take a seat, and if you can't find a seat, feel free to stand on the edges over here, or even come up over here at the front. We are absolutely pleased to welcome you to the next Big Things stage. You're not going to want to miss the contents that we have planned for you this afternoon on the future of work, and especially our very next keynote speaker, who is a digital innovation expert and entrepreneur. She has founded several companies in the internet space. Her two most recent ventures include SheWorks, a platform that connects women to flexible job opportunities with over 20,000 registered users in 65 countries, and her other company, Transparent Business. This is a SaaS platform to manage remote teams in different geographic locations. Sylvia is also a commentator on CNN in Espanol and other top networks, and a writer on online trends. So a big warm welcome. She joins us from New York and Miami, a global citizen. So please welcome Silvina Moschini.
Hello, everyone. In 1999, I had the opportunity to work for a company that it was very famous in Latin America and somehow in Spain, called Patagon.com. It was back then when the world was divided between brick and mortars and .com companies. And at that time, Patagon was suggesting that people will not manage their money in a traditional way, going to the bank, making lines, and waiting for the cashier to handle their money. They will do bank on the internet. As you can imagine, the surprise of the people when we were pitching the idea to find investors and analysts who will support our concept was, it was gigantic. People said that we were absolutely crazy, absolutely nuts, that this is not going to happen, that people will not manage their money on the internet. But the reality, 20 years forward almost, is that no one managed the money without managing through a platform or the internet. I'm here to tell you this story because I'm going to talk about the speed of change. And I'm going to talk about how disruption changed industries, changed the way we work, changed the way we buy, changed even the way we find love on the internet, because I found my Match.com husband as well, so I'm walking the talk on this. And if we talk about disruption, we cannot miss, and I will need some help to get there, the screen or not? We cannot miss the speed at which change happened. And this disruption makes companies that exist today most likely to not exist in 40 years old. This disruption changed because we are living the perfect storm for digital transformation today. The storm that is brought by cloud technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, on-demand models for accessing the skills, the services, the resources that we need when we need it. When owning things is less important than having access to them. But this speed of change is going at the internet speed. As you can imagine, the speed of the internet is extremely fast. It took the telephone 75 years to actually reach 50 million users, but it took only 3 days to a company, a gaming company called Angry Birds, to reach the same number of users. So this is happening right now, and the speed of change will digitally transform the way we do absolutely everything. Another great example is how much money it makes a gaming company in reaching $1 billion. Only 3 days. The Grand Theft Auto Sales 5 took only 3 days to reach $1 billion in sales. Can you please check to see, or perhaps someone can help me because I'm going nuts with this. It's not working well. And one of the most important things on this is that internet is the absolute enabler of this change. In Spain, it's one of the highest connected markets in the world in terms of internet connectivity. 93% of Spaniards access the internet, mainly through mobile platforms, but also through their computers. Internet is the enabler, is the red dot that connects everything for education, for employment, for access to markets, for absolutely anything that we want to do. And in the world, and in Spain in particular, one of the main drivers is social media. The most popular social media platform in Spain is YouTube, followed by WhatsApp, but also Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and also LinkedIn are very popular, and they are driving users. It's changing the way we connect with other people. More cells than people are 17% more cell phones than people, and people are switching dramatically to a smartphone to have access. So companies are shifting the way they produce their goods, they connect with their customers, and we're shifting for a model from mobile-first companies to artificial intelligence, AI-first companies. We were talking about the on-demand economy, where accessing is more important than owning, and this not only comes to the resources, but it comes to the way we do businesses, the way we access the talent, which is what we are going to talk today. And all of this is driven by data. One main example that I think is very interesting is House of Cards. Thanks to data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, the producers of White of Cards were able to offer the two main persons in House of Cards, Kevin Spacey and the director of the social network, a contract without even going through the pilot, because the data suggested that based on the track record and residual users that will follow the series House of Cards, the traditional British series, they will like it. They will also like Kevin Spacey, and they like the director of the social network. And Netflix spent roughly $200 million in original content, and they are using data, machine learning, to predict what the users will like. So anticipating and basically trespassing the frontiers of access. And also one important trend, and I think in this one, it's something that we see not only in the public sector, but also in the private sector, is that transparency is becoming the new norm. We expect data transparency, we expect transparent access to information, because today in the digital world, one of the main concerns is security and is privacy. So we expect the companies to provide information, transparent access to the data and how they use it. And all this transformation that we see in technology, in business model, we talk about cloud, we talk about AI, we talked about on-demand access, we talked about artificial intelligence, we talked about mobile, everything anchored on the connectivity and the internet. It's important, it's driving this digital revolution that we are living today, but the most important factor is not technology. Is the demographic change that we are living. The demographic change that we are living in is the one that will change the companies forever. The way we buy, the way we work, the way we hire, the way we conduct business, the way we learn, and absolutely everything. And these are the millennials. Many of you are millennials. Many of you are millennials by heart because you love technology. Millennials will be 75% of the workforce in the next 5 to 10 years, and the way they work is completely different than what we used to work when I was at the university as a young graduate. But when we look at millennials, they expect a completely dynamic way of work, and when we see the world of work today, we can see that it's absolutely broken. Talent is here, opportunities are there. There are 220 million unemployed people in the world, yet 50% of the companies complain they cannot find the talent they need. And there is also a gigantic skill gap. So we need to change that, and to change that, we need to change the way the work is done, because we are living a massive transformation in the industry, yet companies are still working like in the Flintstone age, like pre-internet with analogic work model, commanding people to show up in an office to prove that they are actually working with systems that are absolutely obsolete in the age that we are living now. So our vision of how the world is working and how it's going to be a massive reality in the next few years is remote work with on-demand access to talent. 40% of the companies are already, companies like Cisco Systems or Google, depending on contingent workforce. But this is going to be added up to the number with the gig economy, people that want to work with flexible work models, because at the end of the day, as we always say, work is something that you do, not somewhere that you work. If you have connectivity, if you have a computer, if you have transparency, you can work from anywhere. And if you plan to work on these models, you need to have flexibility. With all of this and the right technology, you will be able to command a team, to lead a team with designers in Argentina, project managers in Spain, developers in Ukraine, all together working thanks to the power of collaboration and the power of technology in a seamless and accountable manner, thanks to the technology. And if we come to think to that, this is possible today thanks to what we call the talent clouds. These are the aggregators, the talent marketplace. Think of an Amazon, a Mercado Libre, an aggregator not of goods but of talent, where people can go and apply and can get pre-qualified, assessed through different tests, and available to be hired by the startups that are going to be growing fast, accessing to the skills no matter where the skills are, because as we said, talent is here, opportunities are there. This is one of the things that we do for women at SheWorks, because women represent 50% of the advanced degrees, yet 51% leave the workforce due to lack of flexibility. What they call here in Spain, lack of difficulties for conciliation, la conciliación. So it becomes extremely important that we change the way we work if we want to have diversity, if we want to have women who represent also 80% of the decision buying power. We need to change the way we work, but if we want to have millennials, we also need to change it. So these talent clouds help you to aggregate this talent from anywhere in the world. It works like a Match.com, where you basically apply matching algorithms and data and machine learning to find the perfect match, except that instead of a boyfriend or a girlfriend, in this case, you find the perfect talent, freelancer, on a project basis, full-time, part-time employee. You can see with a very high level of details the DNA of your workforce, skills, competencies, experience, the rating. As you know, we see Cabify, Uber, we see Amazon. We are very much driven when we make a reservation in Airbnb or in Expedia by the feedback received, because the feedback, the collective knowledge of the masses, the wisdom of the crowds, is what will determine in this future work employability if someone have a good performance, if they like what they see. This technology will allow you to find the best person, no matter where this person is. Do trial to hire. As you know, many people interview really great, but when it comes to actually working, perhaps the expertise or the talent is not there. So when you do trial to hire, you actually create a virtual meritocracy. And this also becomes very important. And we were saying about how to provide direct feedback. This collective knowledge propels talent on top of the global market. So you can have the basic skills exactly in the market where this market produced, but without having to deal with the relocation. In Silicon Valley, where I lived for several years, it becomes extremely important because of the visa situation, the cost of living, the poaching, all the issues that we have. But when we run startups, we also know that it's quite challenging to attract talent to work with us when there is so much competition out there. But then when we find the talent, and this talent is global, we have also another challenge, is how do we manage it? Remote teams brings a lot of challenge along, trust, engagement, and accountability. So how do we deal with that? And the answer is transparency. Transparency is indeed not orange, the new black. And transparency allows you for coordination and collaboration, but it also allows you for real-time coordination of the talent. It allows you to shift the focus from monitoring the people, physical presence, to actually follow the work process, to make sure that it doesn't matter if they look sleepy, if they show up, that they are there for you. You can follow the work, you can collaborate in real time, centralize the assets, and also basically build an exponential organization. And when you build an exponential organization, means that you build an organization that is 10 times faster, 10 times cheaper, and 10 times more efficient than the organizations that we know. And to close on this, is we are living the perfect storm for digital transformation. We need to invent, and for that, we need to experiment. And this is a gift for one of my most admired entrepreneurs, Chef Bezos, and thank you very much for the opportunity to share this with you.
Tengo que hablar con ellos porque os están cortando cuando falta un minuto, porque yo estoy pendiente del tiempo. Sí, se lo voy a comentar ahora para los siguientes paneles. ¿Está guiando con eso? Exactly.
¿Qué pasa con el control?
No sé, porque justo ellos son los que... Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started and move into the next panel. But first, I wanted to thank Silvina for her reflections on the new way of working. I absolutely love the quote, "Work is something you do, not a place you go." So that's definitely food for thought that we can take with us for the rest of the afternoon. The next session is going to be on talent and culture, enablers or bottleneck of innovation. And our moderator is Nicholas Tenard. He's heading growth, people, and operations at CFTE. For those of you that don't know what that stands for, it's Center for Finance, Technology, and Entrepreneurship. Nicholas and his organization work through their platform to provide individuals with the right toolkit to act on technology and innovation to improve financial systems. Nicholas is passionate about organizational change and how technology can shape our future. He has a background in banking, fintech, and startups, and working in both London and in France. So please give him and his panelists a very warm welcome on stage. Thank you so much.
Great. I think we can all come. I'll try to introduce you afterwards. Great, take a seat. Sure. Thank you. Well, before introducing the panel, what I wanted to do is I don't know, trying to give a bit of context, right? It's a big title that can be quite tough to cover in 25 minutes, but we'll do our best. And I think we have really diverse profiles that will do their job into sharing their experience. But to give you a bit of context about the topic by itself, like it's true, but we all here at South Summit, so I guess we're all aware of that, but like that technology and digital behaviors are changing how the work is done. So how do we work in organization? How do we create value? And how do we market our products? Right? With that in mind, it's not a new thing, right? It's been more than 20 years that it's the case. And although in all these conferences or in the academic paper, in the news, there's always been a consensus, or it's been a while that there's a consensus about culture, talents, or mindset being the key elements for transformation, for digital transformation. But in reality, like it's hard, or it's not necessarily the biggest, but in the facts, there's not necessarily much done in that place. Or the idea is like, there's a lot of talks about culture, transformation, mindset, the right talents, but when you look at the fact, the initiatives inside big corporates, the investment that are made, there's not necessarily much done in that space, right? So what we're trying to do with this panel today will be to first understand concretely how these talents and culture things are impacting innovation, but also to try to isolate a key elements that will really enable any organization to drive towards this innovative culture, right? So I'm really glad to be hosting this panel, really. So what I'll try to do is to briefly introduce you, and the first question I'll have with you will be really to understand why you're here. So I guess it will be also a question to polish a bit the presentation I have from you, right? So immediately on my left, Luis Diaz, which is a managing director at Accenture. He's one of the he's leading talent and organization for Spain, Portugal, and Israel. So he's really a seasoned and experienced in transformation management. So like his day-to-day job is helping large institutions, large organizations to implement transformation in the day-to-day. So it can be on talents, on culture, on mindset, or organization, on process. So it's really with this wide experience that you come here to the stage. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And Laura Gonzalez Lorenzo, sorry, that is a lead or integration lead at Willis Towers Watson. So she's a seasoned director on HR and really an expert on transformation management. So she started her career in a startup. So she knows both world of startup and large corporates. And she evolved in her career on different HR perspective, really with an international exposure, and she's now working with this in this huge multinational that is doing corporate services, both on people project, but also on risk and on capital projects, right? So we're really glad to have you on the stage as well, and I'll give you the occasion to complete this presentation.
Thank you.
Then we have Philippe Jimenez, if my correct. So that's my memory. That is still fresh. Who's working in Spaces Regus IWG. So it's really this huge multinational that is specialized in the workplace innovation. So it's really with his career, he started 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago in this company, led a lot of responsibilities throughout Europe, Latin America, launching businesses in different countries. And now he is the country manager of Spain and the VP sales for Southern Europe. And he really comes to the stage with this expertise of like how workplace and the environment of work has its implication on culture and the way we innovate together, right? And Ignacio, which is a serial entrepreneur. I think we can do that. It's been 15 years that you launch and grow businesses. Quite impressive to start in Spain as a lawyer, then move to the US to launch a business in the music industry, then move to the UK to launch something in advertising, and came back to Spain after all these successful exits on different industries. To solve one of the key problems that he had in his previous business, which is hiring. Right? So I think with his new company called Be Wanted, he tries to help millennials, or at least entry people entering the workforce, try to understand, to find the relevant job for them, and simplifying the process on the other side for the company to have the relevant talents around them, right? So really diverse profiles. So I'm really glad that we have this discussion with you guys. And yeah, my first question that I teased just before: why are you here? What's your perspective on this topic? Luis, do you want to start?
Sure, why not? To hopefully shed some light and somehow demystify some of the people elements of enterprise transformation. Sometimes people paint quite a grim picture about the future of work. There's some confusion surrounding how to transform an organization on the inside, what to do in terms of the people side of things. So hopefully that's my contribution to the panel today.
Great, thank you. Laura?
Well, in my case, I am fan number one of how the health and wellness in work environment and how the people and diversity can affect the change in the organization. And I think that it is very interesting to have the opportunity to talk about that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as we are concerned in the flex space world, innovation and talent have just had a massive impact on the way we work, on our industry. Entrepreneurs are one of the main drivers of change because we are all changing, our lives are changing, the way we work are changing, and for us being here is a big exposure, but also is a good way of learning what's going on in the market.
Great, thank you.
Why am I here?
Yeah.
I don't really know. Actually, I got lost in the way in. I'm here because I want to share my findings, my knowledge, my experience in building a culture of innovation within a startup, which is usually much harder in some ways than in a multinational. Different challenges, I'd say. But mostly to as you said, demystify a little bit of what a culture of innovation is and how difficult transformation is. It's not that difficult, I'd say.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here. And to kickstart so we're all kind of from this experience that we all accumulate in this stage. The idea was to start with a concrete fact, right? So in your experience, what's the most striking kind of organization process or like practice that is either or has either enabled innovation or being very, very toxic for innovation? Yeah.
I can start with that. I think one of the drivers for innovation is creativity and exchange of knowledge. The best experience I've had is when I put together two people in the same room that were from different backgrounds, different perspectives, different ideas, and the exchange of that information, that culture, led to something new, something we haven't seen, and a new perspective also brought. That was great when it worked. You know, having two people that suddenly find that they're great at doing something together. But if you don't manage that process meticulously, you can find yourself having the opposite effect. You have two people that hate each other, that don't want to work with each other, and all the effort and energy you put into that project goes out of the window. How we learned to differentiate that was just basic human behavior and understanding human characteristics. It's like, yeah, you need to be complementary but different. That's how I saw it.
Great.
I have some good example of how, because I think one of the key elements are the diversity, the autonomy, and the flexibility. And I would like to share one example of how in Willis Towers Watson, that is a big corporation, it is already happening, and this is something that I think that we bring from the startups. I'm working for 16 countries, but I am based in Madrid, and I have 3 colleagues on my team that are based in different places in the world, and we all have different backgrounds, different styles, and sometimes priority, but we inspire each other. In my case, I'm working 4 days per week and work from home, and what I want to explain is how we are moving from a static organization to a more flexible, where it's more a matter of a skill set linked to different projects or assignment, and we are not anymore restricted for your function, your place where you are located, or your business area, right? It's more a needs organization and your personal preference.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Philippe?
Yeah, about 30 years ago, we are still working in the analog era. And the baby boomers and the X generation were working with papers. They were working in the middle of computers, heavy machines and cabling and papers. And all of a sudden, by the early 21st century, end of the 20th century, the digitalization happened. And that was like maybe the 4th industrial revolution. And we were now not binding to the offices as we used to be before, but we had the freedom to step out and work exactly where we want, when we want, and how we want, which is freedom today. And we have to make sure that 4 generations work together in a company, some with papers, some that are completely digitalized, like the millennials or Z generation. Today, with the laptop, the mobile phones, and the clouds, and the Wi-Fi, and you name it, we can completely work from everywhere. This is a challenge. Innovation is the main driver. Culture is another important driver, because some directors or bosses still want to see their people working about 12 hours a day. And that's a challenge, just to change their culture and use technology.
Great, thank you. Louis?
Okay, we got some positives. I'm gonna throw in a couple negatives.
Great.
One of those is a culture of fear within an organization. Some of the clients that we work with are big corporations that have a certain cultural mindset, a certain way of doing things, a conception of excellence in everything that they do. And when that happens, and when that permeates the organization, and people live in fear of being penalized for making mistakes, then that really hampers innovation. The other thing that's really negative, and that's, I think, not good for an organization that wants to foster innovation, is the small-scale mindset, the tactical, the really siloed mindset, where they say, okay, I'll put together a few people, an interdisciplinary team, a cell within an organization, or an innovation department. Innovation cannot be confined to the innovation department. It needs to be systemic. Otherwise, it's like a drop of water in the ocean, and that doesn't affect change.
That's very interesting. Thank you very much. It's true that failure is something that is always highlighted, like the fear of failure as key for innovation, and maybe a bottleneck for other big organizations. We want to jump on the first big subject, but I see that the time is running very, very fast. So we'll try to accelerate as well. So we wanted to talk about both talents, because it's like in organization, in culture, talent is one of the big important part, let's say, and the culture, so more like the frame that is around the talent, right? So on talents, there was one question about, and it's a wide question, but maybe we can try to go to a snippet of answers, which is, what are the skills that are required to innovate today? If you had any example on your background, what can you see? Maybe you can share, I guess, on Be Wanted, you have a lot of skills that are in demand.
We do. It's hard to put down which specific skills you need to have an innovative personality. When we look for talent, we understand talent in a very broad way. I think it's a buzzword that everybody uses and throws around. Everybody wants talent, but it's hard to define. It's hard to define and hard to find too. In regards with innovation, we find that the combination of skills, personal skills, are a combination of knowledge, imagination, creativity, and drive. I mean, we find, even at Be Wanted ourselves, that in order to think ahead, you need to have the imagination. But to properly think ahead, you need the knowledge of what's going on around you. You cannot think ahead if you're simply just imagining. That's dreaming. The third part is creativity. You have to foster it. Most people think that creativity is something that you are born with, that is something genetic, and it's not. I mean, what I try to do with our guys is push them to go out to museums and to art and see design, because it's everywhere, and it is something you can learn. And you really can learn to be creative. It's a matter of practice, to be honest. And everything is great, and all those combination of skills are awesome. But if you don't have drive, the drive to push forward with your idea, to fight the nose of your colleagues, your bosses, your clients, your industry, your shareholders, then you won't get anywhere. Because innovation is not a process of, as we think, creation is beautiful, and suddenly you come with this idea and then you transform things. It's usually more of a fight with the status quo, something that's already there that you want to change. And everything that stays that's in status is reluctant to change, by definition. So you have to put enough effort to kind of move that thing from its natural place. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be for the weak-minded or the weak-willed. So for me, the most important one is that drive. Everything else, I believe, you can learn, and you can exchange, but
it's interesting, and so it's mainly personal skills. What's your position about technical skills or digital skills?
There's been a really big push for technical skills, and that makes a lot of sense, because we're in the digital era, which is in part about technology. So there's been a very strong emphasis on the STEM careers, the science, the technology, engineering, math. We're transitioning towards a different concept and a different acronym. Rather than STEM, we're talking about HEAT, right? Where the acronym stands for humanities, engineering, arts, and technology. Mm-hmm. Engineering and technology continue to be very important in the future, but you also need the soft skills. You need to be able to help people make sense of the data and visualize data to consume it in a different way. So you need an artistic mindset to do that. You need to be able to train robots in empathy, for example. So someone with a humanities expertise and sensibility is better equipped to do that. So yeah, I would say those two.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I think we'll skip the acquiring skills question or acquiring talents question and move towards the culture, because having great talents is great, but if you don't necessarily have the frame in order to make them work and make them innovate, it's a bit hard. When we started this subject, the idea of transformation, and with this expertise that we have in terms of transformation, how do we change a culture? How do we turn an organization that is a traditional one into an innovative one? So you wanted to share about your experience at Iberia, I think.
Yeah. I was managing the change piece of work for a project called Operation and Improvement Program in Iberia, where we were improving our process, technology, and workspace. And one of the key elements for, that we took into consideration was to put the focus on that the leaders lead the change. And this is very important. Mm-hmm. And also we were incorporating this change in their performance objectives. So this is very important. The other thing was to invest in the people on training for them to understand what the innovation looked like. Mm-hmm. And also was a real desire of to change every aspect of how the function operate in order to achieve this agility and this innovation. So it was the principal things.
That's great. And in terms of implementation, so like there's a question of so starting from the top, like training and so, but how do you embrace or how do you engage the current workforce in this transformation? How is it something that is shared within the company, and how do you, in a sense, granularly change the mindset of leaders? I don't know if you want to continue, Laura, or maybe Luis from your expertise.
How do you do that? Well, you have to understand that culture is a living thing. Culture involves many things, including emotions. You have to tackle that from a technical perspective. Sometimes people refer to culture as the soft stuff. There's nothing soft about culture and how you change it. You need to have KPIs, and you have to manage that change rigorously. You have to implement goals setting, incentive management, consequence management to ensure the behavior change. But you also have to take into consideration the emotional aspect of things. And we work with designers to take people on the journey to culture transformation, to address the different emotional states that the different employees goes through in a culture transformation.
Great, thank you. And I saw the 1 minute addition that we have. I wanted to understand more in terms of workplace, because like you've been working with this real estate and workplace innovation. How does the workplace impacts innovation, or how does it help this transformation?
I think it's the other way around. Innovation transform the workplace.
Okay.
Traditional workplace, as we all knew, or will still know, doesn't work because they are inflexible, because they're expensive, because they are inefficient, and now technology, as I said before, are enabling us to move out of the office and work from any places. So we can avoid, for example, the commuting, the famous 2 hours commuting a day. That is about a month, labor month a year on the traffic. This is completely unproductive. So technology is helping us to step out, to be more efficient, and to be more productive. But it also gives us the freedom to work, as I said, where, when, and how we want. So innovation is key for us, and actually innovation for the first time is enabling us to work differently. And we do work differently because even our life, our paradigmas have changed. Today we are in a liquid society. We want everything now. You want to see a movie, you go to Netflix. Mm-hmm. You listen to music, it's not tomorrow, it's now, it's Spotify. The same with offices. Companies are moving out, they are downsizing, they're increasing, they need flexibility. And technology is the first driver. But there's another important driver, it's talents. And if companies want to attract talents and retain talents, they have to do something else than give just a check. They have to give them an environment. They have to give them a disruptive workplace. They have to give them the freedom to balance their professional life and their private life. And if they want to do that, they have to give them a different environment. And this is the issue, is bottom down. Yep. Because the workers want to be free to work wherever they want, but the problem is up there because the managers still want to count how many hours there are and if their people are in the office, whereas they should just look at results and productivity as opposed to where they're working from.
Great, and I see the stop mentioned, and I think it's a great way to conclude in the sense that it's really something that needs to be driven by the top, right? It's a strategic issue. It's not necessarily something that is on the side of all the strategy that large institution can drive. And coming back to the introduction, it's really something that we need more investment and more resources and more space, finally, in the strategy for those transformation and culture issues. So thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you. Directo? Yeah? Okay. So we're going to jump right into the next session, which is going to focus on, is the era of management over? We have a special guest with us, who's our keynote, Andrew Chikoyan, founder and managing partner of Strategic Narrative Consulting, advising companies such as Booking.com and several other tech startups on international public policy. Andrew has also held leading positions at the World Economic Forum, Millennium Challenge Corporation, to name a few of his impressive roles. So please, let's give him a warm welcome up here on stage. Welcome, Andrew. Being quite tight on time, but let's give them a minute or so.
Working? Oh yeah, here we go. All right. Looks like, I was told that there are really long lines to get into this room, so I was also very worried that for this particular session the line will be shorter and then I'll feel bad. Great. Maybe we'll kick off. So many amazing sessions at this conference, and here we are in this room. And I suppose there are really a couple of reasons. Either you are the managers and you're wondering, is your time up? Or maybe another alternative, you report to a manager and you're probably wondering the same thing. Is their time up? Right? We'll get to the answer maybe in a few minutes, but first let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story of a software developer, just like many of the people at this conference. His name was Peter Gibbons, and he worked at Innovate. But he didn't really like his job. Okay, let's be frank. He truly, truly hated his job. And one of the reasons is he reported to 8 different managers. Can you imagine 8 bosses and just one Peter trying to program his way to the top? So this misery at the office quickly translated into his personal relationship. Things began to unravel, and he was really struggling. He needed to take desperate measures. He needed to put his life back on track. So he signed up for a hypnosis session. He wanted to be hypnotized and emerged a new man. Instead, what happened? The session went terribly wrong. It was a complete disaster. The guy comes in, and the Dr. Swanson, passes out in front of Peter's eyes. He suffers a heart attack. He drops dead. Well, can you imagine being Peter? The guy who was there to cure you dies. How do you feel? It was a cathartic experience, but also a liberating one. He finally understood he needed to take control of his life. He was no longer prepared to tolerate the suppression of the office. There's a lot of drama in this story, wouldn't you say? Yeah? Someone should have made a movie out of it. Well, someone did. Office Space, an iconic film, came out in 1999, and Peter Gibbons spoke for his generation when he said this. It's not that I'm lazy, it's that I just don't care. And you don't look surprised. Let me say that again. It's not that I'm lazy, it's that I just don't care. He's a fictional character. He's not real, but you and I, we are, right? And we want our jobs to have meaning. So what's holding us back? I submit to you, it's the logic we've inherited from the industrial age. It's the hierarchy, the bureaucracy, the command and control logic of running the enterprise. All those ideas, they reside where? They're stuck in the dictionary, in the language that we use. Take the word manager. You know, you've heard that people join companies, but they leave managers. And quick Google search will surely tell you why. My manager is rude, is treating me unfairly, control freak. Well, let's not blame the managers. You know, it's not their problem. They're stuck in the same dysfunctional system that the rest of us. The managers I reported to, they were great, they were competent people, they were good at their jobs. But you know the problem is the system expects them to command and control. And you know what they do in that system? They try to do exactly that. They try to command and control. And this is clearly not working. You know, and why is it not working? There are really a few megatrends I'll highlight quickly to see where the pressure is coming from. The number one megatrend everyone's talking about, and surely for a reason, is the accelerated pace of technological advancement. You know, let's make this real. Who remembers the world before social media? Raise your hand. Okay, some of you are not raising your hand. That's because you're 15 years old, or you're on social media now, tweeting about this session. So that's okay then. Who remembers? Keep your hand up if you remember the world before mobile phones. Yeah? Before internet, before personal computers. Okay, some of you. All right. So every single one of those inventions, they turned the world upside down. But guess what? So did the abacus and the printing press. The problem is, there were 2,000 years between abacus and the printing press. And in our lifetime, we've experienced a handful already. So in that world, you know, it's now been called a VUCA world, the world where there's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And imagine, in this context, can you really forecast anything forward? Can you plan and execute? If you forecast, plan, and execute, that's called strategy. But strategy, as we know it, is dead. Instead, we need to move to iteration and consistent feedback. So the managers, they earn their keep by implementing the strategy. And I wonder, you know, in this new world, if there is space for that. The next mega trend is automation of everything. You know, you've heard the forecasts, and we just said the forecasts don't make any sense anymore, but you have heard them. You know, as many as 2 billion jobs will disappear within a decade. You know, 2 billion jobs is half of the jobs that exist today. So let's make this real as well. Everyone on this side of the room, in the year 2030, you're unemployed. You feeling that? And the rest of you on this side are still working, but maybe wondering if you should have picked a seat on a different side if you're reporting to 8 different bosses, just like Peter. But, you know, whether or not those forecasts make any sense, what is absolutely true and what everyone agrees on is the work that is possible to parse out, the work that is repetitive in nature. That stuff will be automated. It'll be better handled by algorithms and computers and robots. The work that will remain will be creative. They'll require, you know, collaboration across teams. And that kind of work doesn't lend itself naturally to management. What else is happening is the millennials, they will soon dominate the workplace. We all know that information is power. And you know what the traditional manager will do with information when they encounter it? They'll hoard it. They'll hold on to it, right? And maybe give it to you on a need-to-know basis. What do millennials do with information? They also know its power, but they'll share it. They sense it very differently. They want to be a hub in a network. They want to be an influencer. So they handle information in a completely different way. So how do you think the hierarchy will survive this kind of attitude? So there's three mega trends: the accelerated pace of change, the automation of everything, and millennials coming of age. And some companies, they're really struggling to cope. And they really take half measures. They bring their employees and they say, we're going to be different. We want to empower you. We want you to be creative. But they don't do anything. And those companies are really creating more mistrust and more confusion. But there are companies that are really absolutely getting this right. And Steve Jobs, he really sensed the zeitgeist before everybody else. And he said that it doesn't make sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. This worked out really well for Apple. It became the first company to become $1 trillion business. First public company. And Spanish economy is $1.3 trillion business. So it's a big deal. Now let's look at another company in Sweden. It's no CEO. It operates as a holacracy. No one's in charge. Okay, let me correct that. Everyone's in charge. If you want anything done, you step up and do it. You organize people around you. You set up this project and you move forward with it. And this is the first real alternative to a hierarchy. There's a company in China called Hire. And when you look at this fridge, does it resemble YouTube in any way? It doesn't, but it has everything to do with the YouTube model. The company operates just like the internet. It's 4,000 micro-enterprises that collaborate and compete every which way. This inspired a new term, humanocracy. And what they were able to achieve, they can cut the idea to market by 70%, and they became the biggest appliance maker in the world. So, is the era of management over? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. There are 3.5 billion people working today, and majority of jobs that exist, they don't require creativity and spontaneity. All that is required is efficiency and consistency. That's what has given us the prosperity we're experiencing today. So tech startups, they get a lot of publicity, but those jobs that are core of what the employment is, they're not really going to change overnight. Another question to consider is we human beings are status-obsessed creatures. How do you forecast your status in a flat organization? How do you even know what your status is? Same goes for difficult decisions. If the decision is really hard, you elevate it to your manager. And at the same time, you resent them for making that decision you asked them to make. So it's a lot of contradictions. But what has been true and remains true is hierarchy and bureaucracy, they come at a cost. Peter Gibbons was a talented programmer, but in a given week, he could only do 15 minutes of real work. You guys are much, much better than that. Maybe you can do a real hour.
Scared when Trump won the elections because of this nativist push. I think we are all Californians, right?
Well, we were scared for a lot of reasons.
For a lot of reasons. But this was one that, America has been made by immigrants. And this is very clear. You go to California, nobody's born there. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody comes from abroad. And for me, it was very scary that this nativist push would maybe limit the visa input and hence stifle one of the engines of growth of Silicon Valley. So far, the push has been to low-income workers, which is sad also, but doesn't affect our business. Let's see what happens moving forward. We'll see.
Yeah, I do a lot of immigration and tax law, and so again, I agree. I haven't seen any sort of issues. If anything, maybe there's been a little bit of a slowdown as far as the visa process. Another thing to note, again, is if you come on a visa, and you stay over 183 days, either on a tourist visa or on obviously a regular visa, then you become a tax resident of the United States.
And then with that, there's a ton of other tax implications as far as reporting any of your Spanish companies, or I should say just non-US companies, bank accounts, et cetera. So obviously also be aware of the time you spend in the States does ultimately affect potentially filing taxes in the state as well.
Okay, good. So before we leave, would you like to give a final tip in order how to navigate the US business world?
If I may, I think the Spanish environment has matured a lot. We've been doing this for 10 years. 10 years ago, it was scary for today's standards. And a pivotal point was 2017. In 2017, we had a 45% increase in venture investment. We got to close to 800 million invested in a year. That was impressive. And then last year, it was over $1 billion, so we get this 20% growth, which is fantastic. We put Spain in the map of innovation, and Barcelona and Madrid are great cities for innovation. In 2017, at the same time, I read a very interesting survey that was about students. The question was, how much do you feel that you are in control of your future career once you graduated? The answer in US was 70%. In Spain, it was 17%.
Okay.
So most of Spanish feel that they don't have any control on their destiny. They have this perception of risk that pushes them towards corporations, big companies, don't run any risk, be sure, be careful. And to me, this is the big difference between how students and big, young, talented people that have ideas perceive risk. In US, it's just go get it, and in Spain, still, we have work to do. And if you go with the Spanish mindset to US, you'll fail. 100%, you'll fail. And this can be perceived in a half-an-hour conversation. You need to get into this risk tolerance and failure tolerance of an American.
Good.
That fear is sometimes not a bad thing. In the sense that I would also recommend that that you really, really validate your business plans before you come here, and ensure that they are absolutely appropriately funded. Because it's extremely easy to run out of money in the United States. And you wouldn't believe how fast you can burn money with your projects in the US market. And in some circumstances with very little in return over the initial 12 to 18 month period when you launch there. So I would absolutely ensure that you have the appropriate funding for the business plan that you want to go to the US with, and it's usually probably at least double what you think it should be.
As the accountant in the room, I'll just say that obviously if you're going to go to the United States and seek funding, you want to have the appropriate structure. So meaning that a lot of people look for VCs to look at a C Corp, which has a lower 21% tax rate. And a lot of people also think about potentially switching their IP from, let's say, Spain to the United States because of the tax rates in the US are a lot lower. So, I mean, there's a lot of topics when it comes to that or even stock options versus restricted stock units and a lot of stuff. But I think as you, especially if you're sort of putting on those pants and getting that VC funding, you should also be aware of the potential cross-border structuring transactions between the US and Spain, for example.
Okay, so thank you. Thanks for coming, and thanks for your
Thanks
tips
for having
and
me.
knowledge.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
¿Quién es, Pau? Ahí. ¿Dónde está Pau? Ah. Nada, no. este señor de la esquina, ¿no? Our next speaker is going to help us explore the customer journey, which I think is something that's relevant to all of us, and it can also be very frustrating from the consumer perspective. And I think he's going to be able to give us some really good insights around how artificial intelligence can support that journey and improve it. Pau Contreras is the VP of Solution Engineering at Salesforce. He's a senior professional with over 20 years of experience and a track record in IT innovation and digital transformation projects in the European market. He has strong business development skills and a solid technical background, and he's experienced as a leader in multicultural teams. His CV is very, very impressive and goes on and on and on. So I think the best here is to turn it over to him so he can tell us for himself. So a big, warm round of applause, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Hello. Hola a todos. Muy buenas tardes. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Now, my name is Pau Contreras. I'm a Vice President, Solutions Engineer at Salesforce. Really happy to be here with you today in this really wonderful Indian summer. Well, we call it Veranillo de San Miguel. Yeah, ya es Veranillo de San Miguel. This is the reason why this is so warm here in Madrid and in the rest of Spain. So what I wanted basically is to share with you what we are doing in the space of artificial intelligence. This is basically what I'm going to explain to you now. And well, before we actually get started, let me just tell you if this works. It's not working. Next slide, please. So for the sake of time, anyway, I'm going to go ahead. So we as a public traded company, we need to say before we get started that customers should make any decision, any purchasing decision, based only on products and services that are currently available. And having said that, let's dive in, okay? So we are living in the midst of what the World Economic Forum calls the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Along history, we have seen that social and cultural changes have been always connected with changes in technology. 300 years ago, we started with the steam power, and this was the starting point of the industrialization process. Next, electricity created the era of mass production. More currently, computing started the process of digitalization of our lives. And now, in this fourth industrial revolution, we have technologies such as artificial intelligence, IoT, robotics, that are transforming every aspect of our lives, as I'm sure that you agree with me. Everything is changing, and this change is affecting everyone. Industries are being transformed. Financial services, healthcare, manufacturing, retail, and the list goes on and on. People and companies are trying to adapt to these changes. And of course, we have many questions that we still need to figure out the answer. We are trying to answer what is the future of work, the future of jobs, the future of talent, the future of skills, all the regulation around it. etc., etc., etc. But in any case, what we are seeing is that at the middle, at the very center of this transformation is a person. Because although this revolution started with technology, behind any of these technologies, there is a person. And people, and I mean each and every one of us, are now at the center of this huge transformation. Customers are now in control. Customers, people, are the real engine of this transformation. And customers have changed it completely, their expectations about the products and services that they want to acquire. They are expecting a different way of getting connected. They are expecting experiences that they are expecting to be personalized, relevant, and connected through any device at any moment, depending on their conditions of life. So it is key that we consider this aspect. People are at the very center of this revolution, and AI is playing a key role in this transformation. Now, we are using AI on our day-to-day activities. If you think in everything you do as a normal basis, you will see that at home, on the go, and when you are, trying to acquire anything through your apps, you will be using artificial intelligence. Question is, the situation is really different the moment we step inside of our offices, of the workplace. The level of penetration of artificial intelligence making our lives easier inside the workplace is not exactly the same. And if we go to this space, we have many, many pain points that artificial intelligence can solve. So for example, in a sales team, AI can help the sales rep to define the leads this person should be putting focus on. Or for example, in service, AI can help a field service representative to identify the priorities of the cases that this person is trying to solve. Or for example, in marketing, we can help the marketing team creating the right content for a campaign. These are just few examples of this. In fact, as you can see, 84% of the executives believe that artificial intelligence can generate a lot of benefits. Situation is, anyway, that only 38% of those same companies have a clear AI strategy in place. And the reason for that is all the complexity behind artificial intelligence. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, especially when it comes to having teams of data scientists, all the complexities of integrating data, and so on and so forth. So we think that this complexity is holding businesses back when it comes to implementing strategies in artificial intelligence. What we have done in Salesforce is bringing AI to the foundation of our CRM platform. We want AI to be part, to be embedded into it, so that we can use it without being experts in artificial intelligence, without being data scientists. By doing that, we think that we are democratizing the access to artificial intelligence. And for doing that, we have created something that is called Salesforce Einstein. It's a good name, isn't it? Einstein. This platform is what we call a smart CRM assistant. With this platform, we can cover all the aspects of AI. Discovery of patterns in data, predicting, recommending, and automating business processes with AI. This is what we have done. And this is just a very, very simple example of this. So this is the Sales Cloud, one of our key clouds. And artificial intelligence has been embedded into it so that users can use it without having to be experts in artificial intelligence, so that we can use all the benefits of it without having to implement all these technologies and special skills that we have required in the past. This is what we are doing. With this, we are covering all the spectrum of analytics, from descriptive to predictive to prescriptive analytics. This is what we are doing. And just to finalize this, we have done this using a platform concept. Einstein is a platform that allows our customers to develop AI applications. They can use the platform just as embedded in the clouds, but at the same time, they can use all the functionalities that we provide so that they can build their own programs around all these functionalities. A key element here is that as of today, while we are talking here, this platform is generating more than 8 billion predictions per day. This means that our customers today are using all the benefits of artificial intelligence just by using the CRM platform of Salesforce. And this is because AI has been embedded, as I said before. This allows us and our customers to offer experiences that are not only relevant, connected, and personalized, as I explained before, but also intelligent, which is the key element here. And I think that, well, I want to keep the time. It says 0, although we started with +1, so I still have 1 minute. The last thing I wanted to say is that we think that this technology will speed up the adoption of AI, as I said before, without being an expert in machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing, et cetera, with the set of functionalities that you can see here. Now, my recommendation for you, we have a platform called Trailhead. Trailhead is a platform, it's an e-learning platform that is using a personalization and gamification model so that you can learn a lot. We have created a set of educational content so that you can become a trailblazer in artificial intelligence. So I would like to finalize my speech just by inviting you to go to Trailhead of Salesforce and looking for this trail mix for becoming an artificial intelligent trailblazer. I hope that all of you can become trailblazers in artificial intelligence. And that's it. It was only 10 minutes. I hope that you enjoyed the session. Thank you very much.
Súper claro, muy bien. Sí, pasa súper. Sí, perfectamente. La verdad que es súper claro, los slides muy buenos. Sí. Sí, no, está fenomenal porque así como está en poquito tiempo y se escucha tantos contenidos, pues está mejor que sea to the...
For women, for 66% of the population, and 68% of promotion-oriented question for men. So that means, how do you conquer the market for a man? And how will you success for women? Just see the position of your body when you have like this kind of question. So we need to master the code as a woman, as a female founders. We need to know the rules, and there is a lot of things we don't know about. So that's the job of today. So this is not a pipeline program. If you open the door, if you stop the pitching process, just to tell you a story, Microsoft Reactor in London stopped the pitching process. This is a scale-up program. So this is not a baby early stage startup. They got like 35% of female co-founders in less than 1 year just by stopping that. So it's like, it's mean putting a form, looking at the soft skills, you will talk about that, and having a conversation about the real business. The fact is that the code of the startup ecosystem is really cowboyish. This is a bro culture coming from the Silicon Valley. And the guys, we are educated to say we will kick ass the market, we are the best, we will win everything, give me the money. But the fact is that now, 83% of the IPOs are not sustainable model. And you saw with WeWork, it's like we have really a big problem because we are faking something. We are losing. It's like this growth scalability. In fact, it's just something, it's a story. And when it comes to the true market, it's like something really difficult to understand. So we have no pipeline problem. We need to find the access, and we need to change the process. And in terms of women in tech, I will be like shortly, and just you will jump into after that, Cyril. But the problem is not the attraction today. Is that women are leaving tech, actually. When they are in the workforce, if you are like 1 or 2 women in your company, 45% of them are leaving definitely the tech after the first job. Why? Because we have a toxic culture inside. It's not like, when you have like 90, 10%, it's normal. You are like, between males, it's the same for a guy in a woman's team. It's terrible.
We'll address that as well. A special question for you on that. What about you, Laura? What are the challenges you have in your environment?
Yeah, I think there are 2 ways that we think about it. And it's not just about diversity, it's really about inclusion, right? So it's one thing to have a diverse workforce, but that can often end up looking a lot like tokenism unless you actually actively include people in the discussion. But I'll start by really addressing this point that you mentioned, which is that, it's my job as an investor, it is just true, it is fact, that diverse teams, not just talking about women, but social class, ethnicity, education, disability, we fundamentally know that those teams provide greater returns. So there is just a very practical point as an investor, which is it is in my interest, it is in all our interest to find diverse founders and encourage them to develop diverse teams and inclusive teams. Now, that's not to take away from the second point, which is, as you say, that there is a real kind of purpose for social good that these businesses play. And that's a critical one. I think there's so much discussion nowadays, rightly so, about responsible capitalism, etc., particularly for the bit of the economy that is the fastest growing bit of the economy for every Western or every developed economy. You simply cannot have the fastest growing bit of the economy not engaged with some key social and ethical issues. But, so not to treat it as a secondary point, but whenever I have discussions, I always start with that first one, which is this is not just a kind of nice to have. If you're in the business of making money, you've got to look at diverse teams. It's in all our interest to do that.
So I want to talk about solutions because we've heard all of the problems, and I think we mustn't seclude this conversation to just women. When we look at inclusion at the workplace, we are looking at people with disabilities. We're looking at race. I'm from Africa, so you can imagine, we have a 57 million population, and we need to bring more black empowerment in, and we're looking at females that are joining, women that are joining. Yes, I'm not feminist, but we all agree on the same thing in terms of diversity. So I want to lay that question out to the panel for the 6 minutes we have left, starting with you, Laura, in terms of what are some of the things that we can look at in terms of solutions in order to create an inclusive working environment, looking at it all over in terms of diversity, gender equality, and as well as people with disabilities.
Yeah. So I think there are 3 important parts. That's the way we've broken it down, or certainly the way I think about it. The first is, in order to solve a problem, you've really got to identify the size of the problem. And the critical bit of that is gathering data, accurate data, around what the numbers actually are. For instance, it's fine and well to say that, as I just did, that diverse teams generate greater returns. I could have made that up for all we know. So there's been a huge effort in the last 12 to 24 months around putting increasing numerical data around that. Not least the work that Diversity VC does in the UK, putting a huge report together on the venture ecosystem so that we can clearly quantify and therefore start to create a fact-based narrative around the size of the problem and why it's a problem at all. The second bit of that, I think, is then becoming focused on a central strategy. For instance, if I take many VCs, everyone's trying to do separate things around diversity. This is something that most people recognize, not all, but most recognize we've got to do something about. And what you find, because it's a very autonomous industry, everyone in venture firms going off and doing their own sourcing, etc., that often there's a bit of a decentralized and less effective approach to treating diversity. So what we want to do and what we do as a firm is centralize the discussion, agree on targets, and then hold ourselves accountable to those targets.
Good points. And what about you, Cyril? What would you do in your environment? Because you're working especially in the STEM section as well.
Yes, when I created Rocket School, which is a school dedicated to salespeople, to acquisition, leads acquisition, for the first class, we have a big specificity that we are recruiting people on their soft skills. We don't care about gender, about color, about diploma. We are recruiting people with soft skills. And for the first class, without taking anything in account, we get only 30% of women and 70% of men. So after that, I was a bit upset and I remember about the big French computer school. When you have too many men or women, it's too late. So we work about it with our team, and we look at the data, and we understand that at the very beginning of the process of the recruitment, we had 50% of men and 50% of women. So the question we ask, why? From 50%, we get down to 30%. And we speak a lot with the students, and we understand, it's our point of view, that most of the men were overestimating themselves when the women, at the same time, were underestimating themselves. So in our second class, we take it into account, and we speak a bit much more with the women to understand if it was the case or not. And we get like 45% of women and 55% of men. So we need to take in account the thing that some of women are underestimating themselves when men are overestimating themselves. So perhaps it's one of the feedback we can give.
And in your environments, you work so closely in terms of providing access or giving the knowledge of access, especially for women, to funding, resources, networks, and markets. It's a bit tricky for us. We're a little bit, gentle when it comes to being more robust. Give us some points in terms of how we can get out there and make ourselves available to getting these resources.
I think the first thing is to remember we're talking about diversity and inclusion. Diversity is being invited to the party, and inclusion is like being invited to dance. So women and minorities need to be invited to dance. Okay, so that's the first thing. In order to make that happen, to help women access more finance, I would say three things. Number one, you need to learn. So learn about the funding game, learn who the players are, learn how to play the game, learn the vocabulary, and we can certainly help you with that. You also need to learn. You need to connect. So connect with other female founders and male founders who've done it. Connect with the networks. Connect with thought leaders. Come to the conferences here, and also connect with big corporates. Accelerators, connect to supply chains that actually want to actively supply from female founders. And the last thing I would say is grow. You need to grow your confidence, you need to grow your network, and you also need to grow your diverse team when you are recruiting. So that you have to grow the pool of candidates when you're looking to fill a position. Make sure that you've got 50% female candidates in the pool. That's the first thing. And then once you've got them in-house, you need to grow them, you need to develop them and make sure that you develop the skills. So learn, connect, and grow.
Carolyn, do you want to sum up for us in terms of, from your environment, how we could bring this all together in terms of pointers, the top 3 pointers?
First, from the point of view of women in tech, there's a lot of sporadic movement everywhere, but not a global place, so we need to build the qualified pipeline. We made a survey to ask to the tech ecosystem how they are searching the people and the women in tech. So recommendation, events, and social networks. The 3 places they are not in. So people are looking to diversify the pipeline. Corporates need to diversify because now there is new CSR policies. They need to, their corporate venture, open innovation department have criteria and they need to answer. And the new LPs now, who are funding the VCs, they're asking to track the data. So we need to build first a qualified pipeline of female founders and of talents today. And if you do that, you can help the tech ecosystem really to connect with them. It's not a question of women only who have to connect, who have to do the work or something like that. It's a question of helping the ecosystem to find them and really to know the numbers, to know where they are, and we need to do that. I think it's the first things we need to achieve, and because for male, you have Crunchbase, you have Untitled. We are not, because we are not raising funds. So we are not counting. So it's like the first things we need to do. And in terms of inclusion policy, I believe that we need to have like paternity leave for men. We need to have equality for men too.
Absolutely.
That's one of my big fights. I'm board member of UN Women, and I really truly believe that we need to have like the same right for male and female, and we can like share the responsibilities. It's one of of my fight today.
Oh, that's been fantastic. I want to thank my awesome panel over here, and you've been such a great audience. Thank you also for Alvaro for introducing us. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you'll stay with us for the last panel of the day. We're just going to take a minute just to mic everybody up. So we promise to keep the energy high. You're not going to want to miss the next panel on pivoting is a skill in the digital race. So stay with us. Okay, hopefully you've all enjoyed the day at Sal Summit. This is the last panel of the day, and we're very excited that you've joined us and that you've decided to stay on. You're not going to regret it. We have a fantastic moderator and panel that's going to be focusing on pivoting as a skill in the digital age. We have with us as moderator Madison Menendez, who's Chief Open Innovation Officer at Spain Startup. Marisol connects startups, corporations, and investors through Sal Summit. She's the former head of open innovation at BBVA, one of Spain's largest banks. And her favorite quote, which I liked quite a bit as I was reading your bio, is, "True innovation will come not from technology, but from new forms of collaboration." So please, let's give them a warm round of applause. Thank you so much for being here, to you and your panelists.
Thank you for staying with us today. How are you? How are you? That's great. Thank you for being us today. You know, I really love this stage because I think it feels cozy, it's family-like, no? And I see many familiar faces here with us. Thank you very much for staying. We are going to talk about something that, frankly, I find really interesting nowadays. We know that careers have evolved, that digital life is setting a new way to evolve and grow our own careers. And you know, the best thing is the panel of amazing and incredible women that we have here today. Because maybe it's easier if you introduce yourself. What do you think if we begin with a round of introductions? In a tweet. Your name, what's your role and company, and also maybe a personal background. What did you study? Something about you, okay?
So thanks, Marisol. I'll start. My name is Valeria Dominguez. I am an e-commerce consultant. I basically work with brands to grow their online sales. And previously, I was a corporate e-commerce director at Adolfo Dominguez for 6 years. And I studied mechanical engineering.
Okay, my name is Cor Saldaña. I'm working in Accenture. I'm leading the fashion practice. As a Big Four, we have a fashion practice. Most people, they don't know that we have that practice. And I have a law degree, and also I took an MBA. And after I took another MBA, focus on retail fashion companies. And that's it. And keep on studying. Like every year, I do something different in order to increase my skills.
So, hi, I'm Clara. I'm managing partner of United Invest Fund, which is a venture capital fund focused on startups related to machine learning. And for the last 15 years of my life, I have been involved in this area of investment and venture capital.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Cristina Lopez Pancorbo. I'm head of digital for women's wear, the women's wear category at El Corte Inglés. Actually, I studied advertising and communication. I come from a creative background, and then that was the beginning of pivoting myself to something else and something new. After that, I did a master's degree in fashion communication, and then a program of management development at IESE. And well, I think it's great to be here today.
So thank you for coming. My name is Esther Checa. I'm the head of digital of Tedoso Media. Tedoso Media is a digital agency here in Spain, runs company in Barcelona, in Mexico, DF, in Italy, and in Mexico as well. I have been working part of all my life in search engines. And the last time, the last two years, I have been working with voice. My focus is in voice. So I study a lot. I study in documentation, information science, and with a PhD in retrieval systems.
Well, let me introduce myself as well. I'm Madison Menendez, and thank you, by the way, for the wonderful introduction before. I'm Chief Open Innovation Officer at South Summit. I formerly was Head of Open Innovation at BBVA. My background is industrial engineer with an MBA at IESE, and I'm currently trying to do a PhD. I hope I succeed. At least I tried. And I like to sing, by the way. Not good, but I like it. And you might be wondering, what are we doing here? You know, we have fashion ladies, then we have investment, we have fashion again, and then we have boys. And if you knew also Patricia and Alicia, who are not here together with us, you would be also flabbergasted because they are in different backgrounds as well. I've been lucky enough to meet this group of women 1 year ago when I met Valeria, and Valeria came up to us with a proposal. And I wanted to take a minute, Valeria, for you to explain what we were doing, to explain that part of the story.
So basically for me, this is something that I always have wanted to do for many years, but never had the time and the energy and the sort of platform, I guess. And I actually tried to do it a couple of years ago. Remember, Cristina, when we were in Adolfo Dominguez? But it just didn't feel right as part of a brand. It felt more like a social movement. And once Me Too and Time's Up started to happen, I think it was at the same time that I said, I think we all have so much to contribute to the issue of women advancement, and no more excuses. So I sort of tried to pick different women from different backgrounds to make sure that we weren't just like a fashion group or like a banking group, and just to make it really multidisciplinary. And I wanted what then Goro termed a talent accelerator. That really is what I was thinking without having the words for it, frankly. I wanted a group of women who would come together periodically over a year and really be there for one another with tips, transfer of opportunities around, and just overall support on issues. And I wanted to have a visual and a communication component. I wanted us to speak openly about the issues that we faced in the hopes of inspiring and helping others. And so thank you, all you guys, for bearing with me this whole year. It's been a year.
It's been a wonderful year, and we are quite a feisty group. We discuss, we agree, no?
Yeah.
But I think
that's more fun.
That's super fun, I can tell you. I advise you to try to do the same thing.
If you argue, it's more fun. I mean, if we are the same point all the time, it's not fun.
Yeah, the variety is amazing here. And we were talking about this, and 1 year has passed, and time does not pass in vain. And when we were thinking about coming here today at South Summit, we thought, well, we are a group of 8 women working in digital careers, and we've learned from each other, we've learned from our own experience. I think the introspection has been interesting. And so we wanted to share with you, and that's why the title of the session is Pivoting as a Skill in the Digital Race. We want to share with you our own experience and our own perspective, more like the lessons learned from living a digital career in the current world, while evolving in your own professional career. So if you're up to the task, how about if we take a turn also to share what are, in our perspectives, the lessons learned, what do we understood during this year, and maybe what can we share with the rest of the attendees today?
We can start that way.
Or we can go salt and pepper.
Yeah, exactly.
We can begin.
I can go. I mean, I don't know if I will speak more about the lesson learned just in 1 year. I think that I have quite a number of lesson learned, along my background, because I started working for a law company, which was at that time Garrigues Andersen. So I switched and I made like a kind of, I would say, a 360 shift of my background, because in some point I am in the starting point, because I started in Garrigues Andersen at that time. And I am working right now in Accenture, which at that time it was Andersen Consulting. So I think that the starting point and the final point is a kind of the same kind of company, at least it was at the beginning. I started as a tax lawyer, and I realized that I love fashion, so I started working for a designer. And at that time, I just know that I like fashion, and I didn't know how to bring my skills in the new world. So at the end, what I have been learning is like that I have been evolving I think at the speed of the current context. So I started working for a fashion designer doing or focus on a client experience in the offline channel. I was evolving to the online channel because it was the natural path at that time. So that's why I started working in Amazon by Veep and after El Armario de la Tele, both of them based on the online channel. And at the end, the natural also evolution, it was working for a consultancy company because they were super focused on new trends and omnichannel, and I understood that it was the perfect change in my background also to keep on following that path, that natural path of commerce, which is right now the online channel. So that's kind of brief of my story.
And you know, Coro, when you get to meet Coro deeper, you understand and learn a lot about this changing capability and adapting and maybe directing your own career towards what you want.
Yeah, the lesson learned, I mean, once you jump into a company like Accenture, where we have so many assets, I have colleagues here, they can join my arguments. You have so many assets, capabilities, names that you don't even understand with like acronyms that you don't even know. I mean, after almost 5 years, some of them I don't know what they are stand for, and so you have to evolve a lot. And I think that for me was a great opportunity to understand that you can complete your skills and never is late. And when you are working with an organization that evolves with, you have to evolve at the same speed as the organization, and it's something that I learned, that now I have skills that I will never thought that I will get. So I am really thankful for that.
See, Cora is really amazing. But
she's not very objective, so we are becoming very friends, so she's not very objective.
I am. And connecting with this fashion idea, maybe we can have your perspective, Cristina, because I think you're living fashion in another side. No?
Well, giving some context, when we started thinking how to do this panel or how to get a road to this panel, we came up with that some of us come from fashion, or therefore banking or fintech, from different specialities. But the thing is that none of us are digital native, but somehow all of us are leading the digital environment in Spain or having a part of it. So what I realized, listening to Coro now, is that she really had an experience of jumping on something different. But my own experience is pivoting itself. I've been pivoting my whole career. I've been doing fashion my whole career. And what pivoting stands for is basically keeping one foot on the ground and then looking for the next step, what's next. So that's what I've been doing. I came from communication, then I moved to marketing. I've been in the brick and mortar, but always in fashion. And then I met Valeria, and she showed me all the goodness of the digital environment. And I started my career in digital, but always in fashion. So I came from a place where, with all the hard work done, and I use it like a place where to spring from and keep growing. So after that, we started with all the e-commerce, and maybe like 10 years ago, you thought about digital and you only thought about e-commerce and digital business. Yeah. But the reality today is that digitalization is bigger and bigger, and today you cannot think in digital only keeping on mind the digital department. So
it's across the...
Yeah, it's something crosswise. So that's also one of the main stories we learned here, is that digitalization is across all the industries and all the departments, not only the digital department.
Yeah.
And I think, Esther, that you see that also in your daily life, no? What's your intake?
Yeah. So before to share my experience, the way in which I'm pivoting and I am adapting in this context, I would like to share with you a thought, because sometimes I said, okay, I'm working in digital, in digital industry for a long time, and the feeling is, it's really stressful. I don't have enough knowledge for do that. So the thought is, we are living in a VUCA world. It's the way in which I describe our context. What is VUCA? For me, VUCA is a vulnerable world, unstable world, changing world, and ambiguous world. Why? Why this feeling?
Probably is because every 10 years, technology changed. So if you think in the 80s, we started with PCs and internet. So as user, we have to learn. So in the 90s, we started with the web explosion. We start again to learn something new. So right now, in the 20s, we are in a mobile and the application. And the last 3 years, we started with voice, a new channel for communication. So if we are working in a digital context, it's a problem because you need to learn all the time. So,
but that's why it's fun. That's why it's fun.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. It's obviously a really good opportunity to work in this context, but sometimes it's really stressful, at least for me, right? At least for me.
Yeah. It's like never-ending learned.
So according with Boston Consulting Group, this company divides digital industry in 6 areas. Digital business, digital development, digital marketing, new ways of working, Industry 4.0, and advanced analytics. So if you want, in my opinion and in my experience, if you want to work in this industry, you need to choose one of these areas and work one of these areas and develop 1 or 2 skills. For example, if you choose digital marketing, be an expert in programmatic, for example. But in addition, it's necessary to know another kind of knowledge in digital industry. Why? Because it gives you the opportunity to connect and detect new opportunities. So the third point for me, really important, is to keep in contact with another digital professionals. Is the best way to share knowledge. It doesn't matter how much you know if you are not willing to share with another. So sharing is caring. So sharing is caring. And the last one, you have to keep you have to update your knowledge or your skill very constantly. So it's for my feeling is stressful. It's really good. It's a really nice opportunity to work in this industry, but for me it's stressful for that.
Do you have any study conducted by Accenture instead of Boston Consulting for the next time?
Yeah, we do that also. We connect and help each other. Clara, do you think it's also stressful, or what's your own perspective of the career here?
To be honest, I feel quite close to the day-by-day of Esther. I'm a venture capitalist investing in high-tech startups without any technical background, so imagine. But the thing here is what I would like to say here is that, to be honest, the data says that a large number of startups, high-tech startups, are created by individuals without any technical background. And I think it's because probably the technology is just a commodity. It's no longer exclusive to tech people, right? So what I do in my day-by-day is, when I have to evaluate a startup, digital startup, normally, basically, is evaluating 4 main pillars: team, product, economics, and market fit. And that works for all these companies, digital, technical, or whatever, right? So what happens to me normally is when we have to evaluate deeply a technology, what we do is quite easy. We partner with experts on these subjects and just, to have a more accurate idea on this topic, because we can be experts on everything, right? So the only thing we have to do is, look, we need to have an holistic view of all aspects of a company, and then choose those experts that can help you to have a more accurate ideas of the specific topics, right? So that's how I handle that.
So connection with experts and be expert in your own field, which I think at the end we are all doing by connecting and creating this interesting network. No, but Valeria, let me finish with you. What would be your intake and your perspective in the digital career?
So what was the question again? Because I think I lost the.
Well,
like
we were all.
it's like
a good
tips
moment
for
to
other people, or
tips.
what you've,
It's what your learnings, personal learnings in your own digital career, and maybe you can finish with an advice for other people coming into the digital.
I mean, okay, the group always hates me for this, but I always say study engineering because there's nothing like being.
We don't hate you at all.
There's nothing like being the product creator. So digital is a business, and as a business, it's open to really anybody with any type of talent. Most talents have a digital can transform into a digital talent. However, if you look at anyone's phone and you open and you look at your 20 top apps, I bet you that 18, 17 of them were created in the US, and I bet you that all of the apps were created by men. And so it really does matter like who the engineer is, because ultimately we're all solving problems that we feel are problems for our worldview. We're essentially talking to ourselves while we're doing it. So I think it's really important that women become engineers and they become part of the structural and the base for the digital world. And then, of course, everyone else is more than welcome to join digital. I would tell everybody to join digital because you want to start your career or enter a new career where everything is rising. You rise with it. And so none of us are so talented that we can be talented somewhere that's plateaued, a business that's plateaued, or a business that's declining on its own. So joining the digital world, which is rapidly rising, is always a smart thing. But I would say studying engineering was probably the single best thing I ever did, and it continues to be what validates me the most professionally. It's been 20 years since I graduated college, maybe 17 years since I graduated college, and people still say, "Oh, she's an engineer. She must know something." So that's what I recommend.
I agree with you. We engineers are the best. No, we've had this discussion because here we have all kinds of training, and but I also agree because I never knew exactly what I wanted to be when I grew old. I was always like, I like this, and I did it, and it was okay, and I did this other thing, and it was okay. But by studying engineering, in my case, I also had like a good handful of tools until I found out my true passion, which is open innovation. And as you may all know, because I'm always drilling everybody with it, and open innovation, I love open innovation because it's about creating new technologies and new value by connecting people. So for me, it's like getting acknowledge that technology depends on the good quality of people and how we connect and collaborate each other. And for me, really, women in tech, in this case, is one of a successful experiment on this. And I don't remember who was saying before network as a good advice. I think in the digital world, we tend to forget that digital, even if it's a technology, depends on humans. And we humans thrive in network by understanding and learning what others do, by putting your knowledge forward, showing the world that you're an expert in your own field, and connecting with those who might create good business opportunities for you. I think maybe it's a way to sum up our own experience. And I don't know if you want to add anything else, a conclusion or a learning, or maybe a call to action on what we can do or next steps in this digital world.
I don't know, next steps?
Yeah, we're moving forward. Innovation is business,
No, I mean, in my case, I would like to increase keep on increasing and completing my skills, because as Esther was saying, it's a never-ending learning process. So
continuous training.
Yeah.
Yes, I could say to be open-minded. Sometimes we tend to keep focused on what we do and thinking that what we do is the most important thing in the company or, around, and keeping being open-minded drives you to open innovation and to collaboration and to be part and to have a brighter point of view of things.
So I'm going to give an advice, the last advice from me. So I'm going to tell you in Spanish because I don't know exactly the translation in English. It's basically, tenemos que estar preparados para aprender algo que no sabemos que va a existir. So digital is that, because the technology is changing all the time, so very, very fast. So you need to keep your skill all the time, actually.
Yeah.
Yes. Probably this is the conclusion. We have to be open-minded enough to, to face the new things that are coming, and we don't really know what happens.
It's like you don't know what you know.
Yeah, like in a really rapidly changing environment, ultimately you don't know anything because everything's obsolete already.
Yeah.
And so knowing how to learn, I think, is the biggest skill you can have really in today's, VUCA world. Just knowing how to learn and knowing really that you don't know anything. They say the smarter the person, the more they know they don't know anything. And just being really humble about how things change. And every time, for example, in consulting something comes up, I always say, I don't know, let me check again. And then you do another tour of, what's happening in the market, because what happened 6 months ago may no longer be,
Well, I like this as a conclusion because, as always, it falls under the open innovation umbrella. And one of the principles is to deeply understand that you don't know everything and that you don't have all the talent. And so I think with this greater call to action, I invite you to do network, to connect with amazing people as we did, and to keep exploring the digital world. Thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you. Can we take a selfie? Let's take a selfie with the audience. Arjun, let's take a selfie with you.
Yeah, it's the last man, right?
You can stand up if you want. And I'm going to be in the middle, sorry.
Aquí me he pisado. ¿Cómo te gustan los selfies?
Es que esto es muy divertido.
Súbete aquí.
Say hi, everyone. Say hi. Woman in tech. A great end of the day.
Thank you.